As we head into week 8 of college football, it's time to take a look at our power rankings. We're going to start with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, while this is a team that does not look incredibly strong right now, they are still winning football games. And you do have to give them some credit for being a Maryland team that actually looked a lot better this year than people expected. So Nebraska finds a way to win. It was a tough game, but the Cornhuskers do find a way to win. They find a way to beat that Maryland team, a Maryland team that was just coming off a game in which they gave up a 20-point lead to Washington. They were very motivated. Their young quarterback, Malik Washington, is a very good quarterback and gave this Nebraska defense a lot of trouble. But Nebraska finds a way to win, and they're in at number 25. Virginia is going to stay at number 24. We're not going to talk a ton about them. They're obviously still riding high over the 2 wins over Louisville and Florida State. We'll see how they do the rest of the season. Utah, big statement win over Arizona State. And honestly, I feel a little bit concerned about Arizona State going forward. Now, obviously, the Sun Devils did not have Sam Levitt, but I don't think that would have mattered. Utah is running through people right now, which is also helping that Texas Tech win. And if this Utes team keeps playing like they do, they are going to be very fun to watch when they make a run at the Big 12 championship game and get a rematch against that Texas Tech team. Michigan, losing to USC is not great, but this is still a team, honestly, that is going to be tough to beat. Michigan is going to be a lot better than I think people realize. They're playing some of these teams kind of tough. And if Bryce Underwood can hit another gear, Michigan is going to be very fun to watch. The Wolverines definitely deserve to be in these power rankings. You probably can make an argument they could be lower. I can see why people maybe think they're out, but this is a good team, a good defense, an offense that is slowly kind of figuring things out. But whether or not they get to the level they can reach this year or not is probably the biggest question. But Bryce Underwood clearly is learning a lot this year. And if they can rebuild around him in terms of bringing in better talent up front at wide receiver, Michigan is going to be a very tough team to beat. Georgia Tech, this is a team that has a lot to prove. They could be higher, but they are playing games where they don't necessarily dominate in the way that they should, or they're not winning games like they should. Now, the Clemson win hasn't looked as good recently as it might have been in the past, but if Clemson starts figuring things out, then that win looks better. Georgia Tech, though, has some things that they need to figure out, but I really like what they're doing so far. I just think that they need to take a little bit of a step in terms of showing that could be a dominant team against weaker competition. Tennessee has a massive opportunity this weekend to move up. One loss for the Volunteers. The Arkansas game, that it was a game where I thought Arkansas could keep this close, but Tennessee, I think, had some weaknesses that we should be a little bit more concerned about. Maybe they fix those against Alabama. I don't know if that's the right team to try and fix those things, but this offense clearly has no problems moving the football, no problems putting points on the board. It's just that you probably would have liked to see this game be maybe a little bit more lopsided than it actually was. Vanderbilt is going to sit at number 19. The loss to Alabama is looking a lot better than maybe at first you might have thought, but this is still going to be a team that I think a lot of people have already kind of forgotten about in a way. And I think that they're going to be really fun to watch down the stretch as well. They also have another opportunity this weekend, which we'll dive into more tomorrow. Illinois, I think, is starting to realize that they are missing some key pieces. Now, Luke Altmaier is still a really good quarterback. It's just that you ran into an Ohio State team that clearly was more talented than you and clearly just better than you. But the Illini, I think, again, are a better team than people realize. It's just that they made it have some deficiencies that other teams just don't. Memphis is coming in at 17, and Memphis is a really good football team. They are going to have their hands full in the American. The American is full of roadblocks, full of obstacles, and the Tigers will have their hands full, but it looks like they're playing really well. Now, a team that I recalibrated my opinion on, and the reason why they're up here is even though Memphis is undefeated, honestly, it feels like USF is going to be the front runner in the group of 5. Now, again, just like I said for Memphis, the American is full of roadblocks, but people thought that North Texas was going to give USF a tough time. And while early on they did, it had more to do with USF just not taking care of the football. They put up 63 points against an undefeated Mean Green team. I think this is clearly the best team in the American, the best team in the group of five. And honestly, we might have to start talking about, is this a USF team that could potentially win a playoff game? It's probably too early to start talking about that, but we'll dive into that discussion probably at some point this week. Next is going to be Cincinnati. It was not a pretty win, but this is a good team. This is a good football team. And the Big 12, while they're not going to get two teams in the playoff, they have some teams that are going to challenge Texas Tech in ways. We saw it a little bit against Kansas, but right now it's Texas Tech's conference to lose. But Cincinnati looks pretty good right now. Oklahoma loses to Texas. Did not look great overall. John Mateer surprised everyone by coming back. While the loss to Texas isn't great, it was also John Mateer coming back in his first game. You're going to give him some grace, but this is a team that still has some big concerns. Just because we're going to give them a little bit of grace because of that loss does not mean they don't have things to fix. That offense needs some work right now, and losing by 17 to Texas, where your offense didn't score any touchdowns, that's going to be a problem if that continues. USC, big win over Michigan, and while no one's going to put them in the top 3 of the Big Ten, they solidified themselves, I think, as the 4th best team in this conference. They are a very good football team. The offense is very dynamic, very balanced, and we also saw that they have more than just Waymon Jordan. We have multiple running backs for the Trojans that can get the job done. King Miller was phenomenal against this Michigan defense. Washington with a strong performance against Rutgers. I think that there were some concerning times, but they also found ways to win. Damon Williams was an absolute star in this game, and he is going to be really fun to watch the rest of this season. Number 11 is going to be the Missouri Tigers. Losing to Alabama is not great. However, you were competitive in this game for the entire game. That speaks to what Eli Drinkwitz has done with this program. That speaks to what the talent level on this roster is, and it speaks to where this Missouri program is as a whole. They are a much better team. It also tells you college football is much different in the last, this year than it has been in the last 3 years. A team like Missouri was competitive with Alabama, and this is still a very good football team. We'll see how they handle things on the road. That's probably going to be where we truly find out what this team is, but Missouri is a very good football team, in my opinion. Then we get into the top 10. BYU, while they don't look the strongest of the undefeated teams, you still have to give them credit for winning football games. And they are continuing to do that. It was kind of hard to put them behind any other teams in the Big 12, besides obviously who we'll talk about here in a little bit. But BYU is finding ways to win. You can't knock them for that. And again, I don't want to give teams quality losses over teams that are undefeated to a certain degree, but BYU is a team that, even though I have concerns about this team, they are still playing at a really high level at certain times. There are obviously some things you're going to figure out pretty soon, especially when they start playing really good competition in this conference. Georgia. Now, there were some big time controversies in the game against Auburn. There's definitely some dramatic moments, but Georgia still found a way to win. It was an ugly win. It did not look good. There are some big concerns about this offense and its ability to continuously move the ball down the field, but you also have to give Auburn some credit. That Auburn defense is good. It's just that the offense can't move the ball consistently because of the quarterback, and that's a continued problem. But that's an Auburn problem. That's not a Georgia problem. Georgia found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't great, but they still found a way to win. Oregon, you can't really knock them for losing to Indiana, but because of how other teams perform, you do have to drop them down. The Ducks are still a very good football team. I think that they could be a team that makes a run in the college football playoff. Sometimes you just have to play a tougher team to realize, okay, this is where we actually stand, and this is what we need to improve upon. And Dan Lanning's talked about this with this Oregon team. He's seen, even in their blowout wins, these are things we have to fix. Now, one of those things is somebody at wide receiver needs to step up. I thought that Indiana was going to have less fear than most teams that played Oregon so far in terms of covering their receivers. I didn't think that the Oregon Ducks had one player that you could really worry about, and it appears that Indiana felt the same way. Now, the wide receivers and really Kenyon Sadiq as well were not as effective as we might have thought they would have been. That is an area where they can improve. And this was just a good football game. Losing to Indiana, which is a weird sentence to say for an Oregon Ducks team, this is not anything to be ashamed of. Indiana's a very good football team, and Oregon just came up short by 10 against a good team. There are things they're going to fix, and if there's one person and one coach that I'm going to trust to fix those things, it's going to be Dan Lanning. Ole Miss looks about, when we talk about like fraudulent teams in college football, Ole Miss might be the most fraudulent in the top 10, but they're still undefeated. You just have to give them credit for some of the wins that they have, but I don't know if you want to say almost losing, barely beating Washington State raises a lot of concerns. And I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, they're just looking ahead to Georgia. Maybe that is the case, but there have also been some questionable games that they played already. The Arkansas game where they barely got a win, that's looking maybe a little bit more suspect. This is a team that I'm not going to put them behind a team that just lost in Oregon, but I am going to keep an eye on them in terms of how legitimate are they going to be. We'll find out pretty quick when they play Georgia this week. Alabama is coming in at number 6, and Alabama is a team that has wildly changed their perception in college football. The loss to Florida State in week 1 was terrible. It was so bad. I don't know how that still happened, especially with what Florida State looks like right now. Now, that's one thing to keep an eye on. This is a team that we think, okay, they're playing better as of late, but maybe there are other things to consider. The fact that they lost to Florida State, maybe this is truly a different team, but in the back of my head, there's a small part of me that's waiting for this is an Alabama team that can still be beat. And that's true. Everybody can be beat, maybe besides like Ohio State and Miami, but right now it feels like any team can be beat. Alabama is still very much in that realm. We'll see what happens this weekend. They have a big one coming up, but Alabama's also playing with a ton of confidence. They are playing like a much different team than the one that lost to Florida State. It's just that it's so weird that they lost to Florida State and then see what they've been doing the last few weeks. This is a very confusing team right now, but also you'd rather they be playing well after a weird loss than the other way around. 5 is going to be Texas A&M. This is a very good football team. Texas A&M is taking care of business, and they are deep at a lot of positions. Their offensive line has an argument to be one of the best in college football, and we saw that against Florida. And that Florida defense was good. Now, Texas A&M had some issues early on, but that was early in the game. They figured things out. Their offensive line played really well. And again, if Marcel Reed keeps playing at this level, if this offense continues playing as well as it does, this is going to be a fun playoff team to watch. 4 is going to be that Texas Tech team that we talked about before. This is a team that the biggest concern for them is keeping Behren Morton healthy. I don't know what his status is going forward, but they are going to have to figure that out. The other thing they have to figure out, if they can't figure that out, is how do they get Will Hammond up to speed and in rhythm quicker? Because both times that he's had to come in big games, there are a couple drives where he takes a hot minute to get going. Now, when he does figure it out, he's super fun to watch. Lots of confidence. His legs add an element to this offense that we don't see with Behren Morton as much, nor should we. I don't know why they continue. Honestly, Mac Leftwich, stop running Behren Morton. It's clear that this guy is made of glass. He has injury issues, and then you have to wait a couple drives before Will Hammond's ready to go. If Will Hammond, though, can get in rhythm early, they can get him involved. This is still a very dangerous Texas Tech team. This offense is extremely dangerous regardless of who's throwing the football, who's getting the ball at every single play. The defense is on another level. The biggest reason why they're able to pull away from teams is because their defense does not allow anybody to score. Now, obviously, this game you saw Kansas score 17 unanswered points to end the first half, but Texas Tech's defense put the clamps on that offense in the second half. This is going to be a very fun football team, and the Big 12 is going to be excited about what they see in the postseason. Number 3 is going to be those Indiana Hoosiers. Now, I'm not going to put them first or second, though the win against Oregon, very impressive. I don't think there were a lot of people that were extremely confident that Indiana would win, but this was a fun game to watch and also has changed the perception of Indiana football. Pre-Curt Cignetti, this was a crazy, crazy team in terms of at the bottom, they were just getting beat up by everybody. Now, the one thing that was very interesting is the success that Curt Cignetti has brought to this program, the value that he brings to this team. And I'll see if I can find this here, but the win percentage for Indiana in the previous 56 seasons before Curt Cignetti was .361. Curt Cignetti in just a year and a half, winning percentage is .889 coming in, and now actually it's better. That they put that stat on CBS during the game. Absolutely incredible what he has done. And I know that other shows have talked about this in terms of the impressiveness of this coaching ability of his turnaround. It might be the best coaching job that we've seen maybe ever relative to the actual job itself. Indiana is in a much different place, and the fact that we are talking about them as a top 3 football team is absolutely incredible. Miami is going to be at number 2. We don't have to talk about them a ton. They've basically taken care of business. And again, I know that, and I said this, Florida State kind of put up points late, but I do worry about Miami in terms of there are stretches in every single game where they kind of look disinterested. There's lapses in intensity. That is something I'm going to keep an eye on. I just don't know if there's a team on their schedule that can exploit that. And then number 1 is Ohio State. Ohio State is basically just taking care of business, and there's not really anybody that can stop them at this point. Ohio State is looking pretty good. Again, another team that when you look at that the win at Texas, where they struggled to move the ball through the air. Granted, it was the first game. It was Julian Saint's first start. That is something to take into consideration. Also, maybe Texas is better than we thought, but who knows at this point? That's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind, but they just continue winning. This is a team that's really tough to beat. The wide receivers, it feels like they just take their turn with whoever's available, whether it's Jeremiah Smith or it's Carnell Tate. This is an offense that if Julian Saint continues finding his confidence and continues playing at the level that he is, this is going to be a tough team to beat down the stretch. And they're already a tough team to beat. So Ohio State to me is number 1. There's not really anybody that I would put them above them right now. You could make an argument that Miami is there, but this is clearly the best team in college football right now to me. But I'm curious what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments. Who's the best team in college football? Who is on this list that shouldn't? Who's too high? Who's too low? Who's not on this list? Always love to hear the feedback for it, the comments for it. Just love talking college football. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps the channel a lot, goes a long way in helping us grow. Like the video as well, and we'll see you in the next one.